changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration to make you simply happy. It's Tip Tuesday, and today I want to talk about something that I wish I had known back when I was still raising my kids. My son Michael is actually turning 30 today, which is mind-blowing. I can't believe I have a 30-year-old. Anyway, I was lucky because I was able to work from home during 18 of the 20 years that I was raising Mike and his sister Ella. And that allowed me to be class mother for one of them each year, be the team mother for whatever sports teams they were on, drive on field trips. I was able to race to school with whatever they had forgotten. I was able to pick them up from school when they were sick in the middle of the day. I had a career at that time that I could do from home, and I could even ratchet it up or down as necessary. Sometimes I worked full-time, sometimes I worked part-time. I worked as a Wall Street analyst and also an investment manager, and I could do that from home with all the great technology that we have. Cell phones were a big part of that because they gave me a lot more freedom. I could do mom things and work things at the same time. I remember I was running a hedge fund, and one day I was talking to one of my traders while I was chaperoning on a school trip, and I was watching a bunch of kids on the roller coaster at a local amusement park, and I was thinking, I can't believe I'm trading stocks and chaperoning a class trip at the same time. But it all worked great, except for the 2.5 years that I worked full-time and commuted to New York City. And during those years, I also traveled a lot all over the world for business. I got divorced. I moved twice. So those years were just awful and crazy. And I wasn't a very good multitasking mom during those 2.5 years, or so I thought, because I wasn't volunteering as class mom. I didn't drive on a field trip. I didn't even really know what was going on all the time at school. I felt very disconnected. And the worst thing was the emergency phone calls, because I couldn't just run over to school and pick them up. My son was very athletic, and he was always doing crazy, dangerous things that got him hurt. So I would get calls with scary messages like, there isn't enough skin left to put in the stitches. Or one time the nurse said, he was only not breathing while he was unconscious, which somehow was not very reassuring. And the worst time was when I got a call that Mike, in February, rode his bike, unauthorized, of course, down this icy, rocky trail through the woods, and then was found lying in the dirt at the end of a dead-end road, paralyzed. He ended up in an ambulance, and I almost quit my job in the city that day. But the city job finally ended, and things went back to normal, and once again, I was class mom and team mom and driver whenever needed and volunteer whenever needed, and I was juggling my work, but doing it at home and doing all the mom duties I could handle. But I still felt guilty about those 2.5 lost years. I felt guilty, that is, until a few years later I discussed those lost years with my kids. And they both told me that I had driven on field trips during those years, that I had done everything that I ever did. They vividly remembered me participating in all of my mom duties during those commuting years. I was sure I hadn't done any of those things, but the kids were so sure that I went and checked my calendars again. And I wasn't crazy. I had not done anything. I had not done any of my normal, wonderful mom things for 2.5 years. And yet my kids gave me full credit. As far as they remembered, I had never been missing in action. Somehow I had gotten a pass, and I was able to coast through those 2.5 years, living off my good reputation and the kids' memories of everything I had done for them before. So I wrote about this in a book that I published that was called The Multitasking Mom's Survival Guide. And I called my story Coasting, because that's what I did. I coasted and I got away with it. And the kids are absolutely certain to this day that I never took a break from being the fabulous multitasking mom that I most certainly was not during that time. And this is such a valuable lesson for moms. I was talking to a friend who runs a huge business, and I told her how my kids gave me total credit, didn't mind those lost years, still thought I was a fabulous mom, and she was so relieved to hear that she could have the natural ebbs and flows of giving attention to her child during her working years. Your kids won't be nearly as critical of you as you will be of yourself. You do have a little leeway, and that is such a comfort for everybody. I just wish that I had known it at the time. It would have saved me from a lot of unnecessary guilt. I'm Amy Newmark. Thanks for listening to the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast today. Tomorrow is Wow Wednesday, and it's going to be the day before Thanksgiving, so I'm going to share a couple of animal stories with you, ones that involve dogs, cats, and turkeys. And if you're running around like crazy these days, then you may need some more tips from that book that I made for all the moms coming up behind me, Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Multitasking Mom's Survival Guide. You can read more about it on our website, chickensoup.com.